You're listening to PetLifeRadio.com.
It's a big world out there, and you're just looking for a pat on the back or head. You run around the city, searching for a place to bark, working your tail off with your nose to the ground, sniffing for a few scraps, hoping someone will throw you a bone. You take each lead, collar after collar, hoping one day to take a bite out of success and become the top dog. Fortunately, you come home each day to open arms, open cans, a drink waiting for you, and a comfortable place in front of the TV set. You know you've got it good, really good, because after all, it's a doggy-dog world out there. Pet Life Radio presents It's a Doggy Dog World with your host, pet expert, and award-winning author Liz Palaika, and this week's co-hosts Kate Abbott and Petra Burke.
Hi, welcome to It's a Doggy Dog World. I'm your host, Liz Palaika, and with me today are my good friends, Petra Burke.
Hello.
And Kate Abbott.
Howdy.
From the Kindred Spirits Canine Education Center in Vista, California. This is our second podcast of 2009, and I know Kate's still in denial that it's 2009.
I'm getting used to the idea slowly.
Have you had to write any checks yet?
Oh, no.
See, there you go.
I never did that.
I did debit cards now. But anyway, in our first program of the year, we talked about the AKC's new Puppy Star program, part of which is socialization. Today, I want to talk more about socialization. The first half of the program will talk about what it is, what you should do with the puppy, the ages, and why. And then the second half of the program is what to do when your veterinarian doesn't agree with you. Because we hear from so many puppy owners who say, my vet says not to take the puppy out till he's had all his shots. Well, that's okay. Your veterinarian's worried about your puppy's physical health, but we're also worried about his mental health. And so we're going to discuss that and talk about how you can socialize your puppy carefully, safely, but still get the job done. Because an unsocialized puppy grows up to be an unsocialized dog, and you can't make up for it later. So let's take a break to listen to a word from our sponsors, and we'll be right back.
Sit. Stay. It's a Doggy Dog World. We'll be right back after a short pause. Well, 4 to be exact.
Greetings, human. What planet am I on?
Welcome to Pet Planet. Here's a copy of Pet Planet Magazine, Florida's most informative and fun pet resource magazine. It features heartwarming stories and informative articles from local and national pet experts.
Excellent.
Pet Planet Magazine offers Operation Planet Rescue, helping rescued pets find new homes. And it's available at 500 locations in South and Central Florida and 24/7 on the internet at petplanetmagazine.com. If you're out and about with your pet, you may be featured in paparazzi, candid pictures of you and your pet. For up-to-date pet-friendly events, activities, and pet-related services and products, Pet Planet Magazine is your final destination.
I shall take this magazine home with me.
Back to your home planet?
No, to my condo in Boca.
Pet Planet Magazine. Check them out at www.petplanetmagazine.com or 352-394-8578. It's out of this world.
Coast to coast and around the world, it's Oh Behave with Arden Moore. Find out why cats and dogs do the things they do and get the latest buzz from wagging tongues and tails in Rin Tin Tinseltown. From famous pet experts and best-selling authors to television and movie stars, you'll get great tail-wagging pet tips and have a fur-flying fun time. Oh Behave with America's pet edutainer, Arden Moore. Every week on demand. This is the place for a special paparazzi treat. Only on PetLifeRadio.com. Let's talk pets on PetLifeRadio.com. We know you're begging for more. So back to It's a Doggy Dog World with your fetching hosts, Liz Palaika, and this week's co-hosts, Kate Abbott and Petra Burke.
Welcome back to It's a Doggy Dog World. I'm your host, Liz Palaika, and with me today are my good friends Petra and Kate, and we're talking about puppy socialization. So, what's socialization?
Well, exposing them to the world, other people, things.
To quote an erudite and well-learned author, Liz Blake,
We know her.
from one of her books, one of her many books, socialization is the process of introducing your puppy to the world around. I mean,
So that's
basically.
everything the puppy's going to have to deal with in his lifetime. Trash trucks going by, motorcycles, cars backfiring.
And of course, you're not going to be able to do everything the puppy might encounter, but you start the process of learning, being around new things. It doesn't have to be scary, doesn't have to be exciting. It just getting to know new stuff is part of life.
And it's a skill for the owner, too, because how many owners have we seen the puppy reacts to something new and the owner immediately grabs the puppy and goes, "Oh, it's okay, sweetie."
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Way too many.
And that, for our listeners, builds fear.
Refer to the previous podcast, Feeding the Fear. How not to do it.
Well, and like we always say, and again, in Liz's book, one of many,
Yes.
My publicity department.
pay us later, socialization should occur between 10 and 16 weeks. And we see when it happens, we see when that doesn't happen, and there's a world of difference.
Right.
It's called the window time of socialization for a reason. That's 6 weeks out of your puppy's life that can have a big, huge, major impact on their emotional and mental stability as a grown-up.
Well, you figure the first 4 weeks of life, the puppy's with his mom and his litter mates. The first 2 weeks, his eyes aren't even open yet. Right. So there's, he can be handled by the breeder, get used to being touched and so forth. But there's not a whole lot happening then. After that, he's playing with his litter mates. They chew on each other. They learn bite inhibition. Mm-hmm. Mom starts to step in when the puppy gets a little too rough or too rowdy. She'll even correct him. So he's the first 4 weeks of life, it's his mom and his litter mates. And we see problems with this if there's a singleton puppy, if there's only one puppy in the litter.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I had one, Pepsi, many years ago. And she was a singleton. And I think the only saving grace there was when I got her, we exposed her to our other females right away. And she, a little late bloomer, but she picked up, and she was a good girl.
Sure.
She was a very good girl. But I think the other dogs and we, being trainers, knew what to do right away. But people who don't, like we have one person in class now that has that Newfie.
Oh, yeah. Newfoundland that was the only puppy in the litter, and he's got some aggression issues. He thinks he's way too important.
Yep.
And unfortunately, he's way too big.
Extremely.
And then there's orphan puppies that are bottle raised. We see a lot of behavior problems with bottle raised puppies.
Well, and many of them, of course, is women bottle raising them as they were a human child.
Sure.
And it doesn't work. And we've seen one...
Mama dog doesn't rock the baby and go, "Oh, honey, life is so good." Mama dog goes, when the puppy gets too rowdy, she goes, "Quit biting me, little shit." And the puppy learns, the rules of the world. But orphan puppies who have no litter mates to teach them bite inhibition, mom isn't there to teach them to accept discipline.
One good example, many years back, when I did pet rescue up in Oregon, we took a litter of Springer Spaniels, and I had to take 3, and the other 2 girls split the rest. We bottle raised them, because unfortunately mom, for whatever reason, didn't produce the milk, had no interest. Abandoned. But because back then, I was training with you, Liz, I knew exactly between the bottle feeding what to teach them.
Right.
Right. So actually when my guys were old enough to be adopted out, very different personality compared to the rest of the litter.
Sure.
And it was very obvious, and they went real quick. It's a whole personality, more of, they knew their bite inhibition, they knew the rules and all this. They stopped right away. The other was like, yeah, whatever. All the others were crazy, maniac, biting hellions.
Sure. Well, it's that the socialization with mom and the litter mates from the first few weeks of life.
It's just interesting. Same litter, same breed, three different women raising them. And they were
Kate's looking very thoughtful.
Well, I was just thinking, it's not that an orphan can't be socialized or a singleton can't be. It's what you do to make up for it.
Exactly.
You got to fill in being the mama dog.
You have to give it all.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, there's some parts you don't want to do. You don't want to lick the puppy.
Well, no.
I'm not going there.
But
Anyway,
a washcloth under the faucet works just fine.
Well, come on. There's people we know grab their dogs with a scruff with the mouth. So I'm just making a point.
But then you used other dogs, not litter mates, but
Right.
you used other dogs to, and that's
Sure.
a subset of socialization in my mind is teaching dogs how to socialize with other dogs as well as with the outside human world with other humans. I mean, socialization is a broad definition.
Well, that was my next step. You just skipped a step for us.
Sorry.
The initial socialization is with mom and litter mates. If there's a singleton puppy or an orphan, that requires special help from the owner or the breeder because that creates a socialization problem. Then, when the puppy leaves the litter, then we're talking about socialization with other dogs, friendly, healthy, vaccinated dogs. Ideally, a puppy kindergarten socialization class.
So they can meet other kinds. We were talking earlier about different dogs' breeds, and sort of you can think of them in my mind of having different cultures.
Sure.
So one of the examples sticking out of my head is a boxer who's only been around other boxers. He only understands boxer language.
Sure.
And he gets around
They
another
stand
dog.
they bounce up on their hind legs, they flail at each other with their front feet, they growl a lot when they play.
Was introduced to the neighbor's Great Pyrenees, and the Pyrenees said, "My God, you are being so rude to me." Rah, rah, rah.
Sure.
And the puppy said, "I didn't get it. I said all the things I say to other dogs." But he'd only talked to other boxers.
Right. Well, Petra and I both have Australian Shepherds. Aussies do the hip throw thing.
Oh, yeah.
When they run and play, they run circles around each other or the other dogs, and when they come into contact, I don't even know how to say it. They throw their hips sideways.
It's a hip slap.
They do
a
a
hip slap.
hip block. But the other thing is okay, Aussies don't have tails. Tails are a vital part of verbal communication to the breeds that have them. A lot of dogs, if they grow up, golden retrievers, for example, they have tails. Puppies grow up knowing what tails are. The first time a golden retriever puppy sees a Rottweiler or a Doberman or an Aussie without a tail, it can be, what's wrong with you? You're not conveying all the messages that I was taught.
Yeah, or vice versa. We've seen Aussies or breeds that have no tail. Look at another puppy with a tail going, and we've seen it. In
What's
the face.
that biting your butt?
Wow, what is that sticking out of there? It wiggles and it wags.
It took Walter, everyone knows Walter, my little boy.
The busy boy.
The busy boy, the problem boy, the
Temper
record of
tantrum.
It took him a long time, though, to learn to deal with the Aussies hip slapping.
Sure.
Because, I mean,
They knock him over.
They knock him and roll him and tumble him. And
Yeah.
he got mad for a long time.
Until he finally decided that perhaps he was an adopted Aussie too, and maybe he could play that game.
And learned to avoid it. So he had to learn the dialect of that particular breed of culture. And
Sure.
and for him, because he's surrounded by the culture, how to deal with it.
The other thing that we see sometimes that requires socialization is puppies imprint on their mother. So, female Papillon has puppies. Her puppies imprint on her. They think they're Papillons because that's what they see. If they're in a household with only Papillons, that's all they know. They go out in the world. What are these other things? We call them all dogs, but the Papillon says, you're foreign.
Especially a Papillon looking at the knees of a Pyrenees. I mean,
Sure,
it's like-
yeah.
Like ankles.
Yeah,
So-
ankles.
So puppies imprint on their mother and the other dogs in the household, if there are any. So they need to see dogs of other sizes and breeds and colors and body shapes and sounds and smells. That's all part of socialization. But socialization's people, too.
Oh, yeah.
And different
Remember-
kinds of people.
Different kinds. a few years back, Liz's sister adopted a pitty. Sweet boy. But remember his reaction to Hispanic men? Was he'd hide behind us and look around like, oh, I don't know what you are.
He'd obviously either had extremely bad experiences
Or never
met.
Yeah. So again, with people, there's different ethnic groups and shapes and sizes and ages. And
Well, how many dogs do we see that think children are creatures from another planet?
yeah, exactly.
If they haven't grown up with kids, they don't know what kids are.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought I was doing enough to expose Walter to an adopted niece and nephew, but they're unusual children in that they're quiet and reserved. So he met normal children who went, "You're not ready. Ah, you're scary."
And it took a long time to get him over that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well,
a lot of work.
Ursa,
Oh, yeah.
she didn't like the kids for a long time. They were
Most
aliens,
of her life.
They're aliens from another planet.
Of course, she had good taste, too, but...
So you taught kids to be treat dispensers.
Yes.
And then she thought, well,
And
kids
since
are
food,
cool.
Since food is very important.
Yep.
Yep. And then things. Oh my gosh, how many things are in our world that dogs... Vacuum cleaners, and the broom, and the mop, and the garbage disposal, and a plastic bag flapping in and out.
Or the one that we've brought up in past podcasts, but we don't use a lot here, umbrellas.
Umbrellas. Yeah, dogs in Southern California don't get to meet many umbrellas.
No.
And then Kate has a whole variety of things that we've accumulated for her.
Yeah, Kate's toy box.
Okay, they have everything from a chanter, which is a practice device for a bagpipe. So it makes some very strange noises, to kids' toys that make mechanical sounds and beep and bop.
Pop, 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 pop.
And that wonderful animatronic parrot.
Or the ape's head.
The ape's that one's, yeah.
Harmonica and Bojangles thing. And
Anything.
whistles and
Anything.
squeakers. And
Half of it is showing the puppies that new things are just things to be checked out.
right.
And the other half is showing the owners that if a puppy does react with fear or aggression, how to deal with that, how
Sure.
to teach.
And we do it not in just the puppy classes, even our advanced classes. We're
Therapy dog classes.
constantly exposing them to things. But what is nice, because then our students go out there and they come back like, my dog didn't even flinch when this and this happened or that noise occurred, because we exposed him to so much here as we can. Out there in the big wide world, not a big deal. Oh, let me look. What was that noise? Oh, okay, no problem. Go on. But they didn't freak. They didn't panic. They didn't pull away and run down the street, and none of that.
Another
Nice.
thing is surfaces to walk on.
Yeah.
Slippery floors, tile floors, carpets of different kinds, gravel, sand, grass, wooden footbridges.
The savvier breeders that I've talked to actually do that with very young puppies. Putting
Oh,
scraps
definitely.
of carpet and linoleum and
In the whelping box
astroturf.
area.
Put it in there.
Sure.
Get used to different
Yeah.
surfaces early.
But the ones we
Yeah.
notice that have a problem with surfaces is the pet store puppies.
Yeah.
Because they're just on a cage, right? And then things around the house outside, the lawnmower. Not that the puppy's underfoot when you're mowing the lawn, but he hears it. He gets to hear the weed whacker. When my husband and I adopted Archer, who was 5 months old, he'd never heard or seen a weed whacker. And first time I went to do it, he wanted to attack the thing. And it was like, oh, you silly puppy, cut your nose in half. And I had my husband come out and help me and hold Archer while I turned the weed whacker on. And we were able to show him that it's not dangerous, don't attack it, and leave it alone.
Yeah, exactly.
Somebody asked the other day how to get their puppy not to be afraid of the lawnmower, and I said there are some things they should
Oh, yeah.
be wary of. And
Yeah.
not freak.
They don't have to freak. They don't have to attack it, but
They should learn to leave it alone.
keeping distance is fine.
Because the lawnmower is not his friend.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
exactly.
Now, before we stop this half of the show, I want to quote something from a book by Clarence Pfaffenberger. It's called The New Knowledge of Dog Behavior. And this isn't a new book. This was published in the 60s by Hal Bookhouse. But Clarence Pfaffenberger was one of the first to study behavior and socialization for guide dogs. He worked with one of the guide dog schools, and they did a lot of studies on socialization, the ages of socialization, and so forth. And
that's definitely a working dog that you want to be stable.
Guide dogs, got to be able to deal with everything.
Unflappable.
Yes, and he makes a statement that I think is applicable to all of us, and he says, a puppy who has had no socialization before it is 16 weeks of age has little chance of becoming the sort of dog that any one of us would want as a companion. Period. Mm-hmm. He doesn't say anything about making up for it later. He doesn't say anything about waiting until the puppy's had all his shots. Very clear and concise. The puppy's got to have socialization before it's 16 weeks old.
And why? Because that's when his brain is laying down brain patterns, thinking patterns.
That's when he's ready for it. That's when his brain has developed to the point that he has to have it. After 16 weeks of age, he's going to go into a fear period. If he doesn't have that socialization, then he's not going to do it. So we're going to take a break for our sponsors real quick. When we come back, we're going to talk about socialization and your veterinarian. So hold on.
Sit. Stay. It's a doggy dog world. We'll be right back after a short pause. Well, 4 to be exact.
Ladies and gentlemen, Pet Life Radio proudly presents DSPN, the Dog Sports and Performance Network. Get ready to unleash the dog sports enthusiast in all of us, from speed joring and mushing to racing, agility, and competition. This is the place to learn all about the dog sports and activities that you can do with your furry best friend and canine competitor. So get ready for game time. DSPN with your host, Lori Williams, every week on demand. Only on PetLifeRadio.com.
Let's talk pets on PetLifeRadio.com. We know you're begging for more. So back to It's a Doggy Dog World with your fetching hosts, Liz Palika, and this week's co-hosts, Kate Abbott and Petra Burke.
Welcome back to It's a Doggy Dog World. I'm your host, Liz Palika. With me are my good friends, Petra Burke and Kate Abbott. And in this show, we're talking about socialization. In the first half of the program, we talked about puppy socialization, what it is, the age that it's most important, what to socialize the puppies to. We crammed a lot of information in that short period of time. But now we're going to talk about a common problem we see. Unfortunately, a very common problem. How do you socialize your puppy in that important age period from 10 to 16 weeks when your veterinarian says, keep your puppy at home till he's had all his shots?
And
it's tough.
And we'll just say we're not going to argue with any vets. We have many close friends that are veterinarians.
Definitely.
Luckily, they agree with us.
And that would be the absolute best for your dog's health, is never to have, for his physical health, never to have any contact with any possible transmissions of other diseases.
Sure.
Of course.
I mean, I'm
course.
sure if I was a parent of two-legged, I would like to wrap them all in saran wrap too.
Now,
yeah, right.
a veterinarian that I've interviewed for several magazine articles and a couple of my books, Dr. Sophia Yin, Y-I-N, has a good article out on the internet. It's under nerdbook.com/Sophia. It's called Vaccines versus Puppy Socialization, a Confusing Debate. And the question at the beginning of her column was, someone has a new puppy, and she's been told to keep the puppy basically in the house until it's had all its shots. And Dr. Yin has a good explanation. She says that, of course, puppies that nurse on their mom are getting antibodies from the mother's milk. Mm-hmm. That protects the puppy's health. But once the puppy stops nursing, those protectants, she calls them, start to decrease. They're becoming fewer and fewer in the puppy's system. At that point, the puppy can get sick if he's exposed to something. And unfortunately, things like parvo can kill a puppy. So vaccines should start 8 to 10 weeks of age. And at that point, the vaccines hopefully are starting to take hold, building antibodies in the puppy system while the mother's antibodies are decreasing. And most veterinarians give the shots on a 2 to 3 week schedule.
That's why they're done like that, because you don't know without testing, and the testing is more expensive than the
you don't know how
vaccination.
many of the mother's antibodies are still there. And so we repeat the vaccines over this period of time so that, because one puppy, the mother's protectants might disappear at 8 weeks of age, where another puppy, maybe they last to 10. Depending on the mother's immunities, how long the puppy nursed, how strong the mother's immunities were. There's a lot of variables in there. Unfortunately, some veterinarians seem to go a little too far. They're trying to protect the puppies, and so they make the blanket statement, don't take the puppy out. Now, ideally, it'd be easier if the veterinarians said, don't take the puppy to places where there are unknown or unvaccinated dogs.
Like dog parks.
Dog parks.
Beach.
Or even the pet store.
Yeah.
Because we don't know those dogs. But I think there's a happy medium in there somewhere. Because if the puppy stays home, in the house in the backyard, as so many owners do, when they hear the phrase, don't take him out,
They literally
don't take him out. And then when the puppy's 4 or 5 months old and he goes outside or he goes someplace for the first time, we've got a extremely fearful, potentially fear-aggressive puppy. We've got a puppy who's out of his mind because he's never seen anything.
Forget treating one kind of human, children, as though they're aliens. Forget treating one kind of human, those of another skin color or a different culture, as aliens. Mm-hmm. If you don't take a puppy out until that later on age, then they are the alien in a strange planet. Everything about them is different and scary, potentially scary.
Right.
Most likely scary.
Right. Now, this can happen sometimes. We do see some adult dogs who've been given up because of behavior problems to the shelters. Someone else adopts the dog. So we have an adult dog in a new home who's obviously not been socialized. Now, the owners invariably call us saying, can I get into a group class? My dog needs socialization. Well, unfortunately, you can't make up for a lack of puppy socialization. You can't go back in time and take this year-old, 2-year-old, 3-year-old dog back to when he was 10 to 16 weeks old and redo it. There's no second chances here. So what can they look for?
Well, and we've seen them come through class, and I know I've taught. All of us have given that lecture to them. But what we do stress is we can teach control.
I even call it manners. Sometimes it makes more sense to them.
Mm-hmm.
You cannot turn them loose in a room at a cocktail party and expect them to be well behaved, but you can teach them manners and to look to you as to how they should respond to another dog or another person or a scary thing.
Sure, yeah. But the owners also have to, and we see this so much, try not to rescue the dog.
Yeah.
Right. And we see that 95% of the time.
Kate has a good
Falling into the pity pit.
there you go, or the pity party. The dog is rescued. He's in a new home. He's fearful. He's scared, and so the owners want to save him. They pity him. They feel sorry for him,
And they've all been beaten
or
of
abused.
course.
Well, wait a second. How about just never been socialized? There's
Yeah.
a little the simple, never socialized, not beaten or abused.
So with adult dogs, we can't take the step back. We can't make them puppies again. We can't do the socialization that was never done. But we can, with training, have the owner teach them control. We can teach the dog to look to the owner for guidance as to how to react.
I love the phrase alternative behavior.
Yes.
So,
We've seen we've seen a few dogs that they'll have the first dog well socialized, a very open, friendly dog. Then they adopt one that is non-socialized, but you notice he'll watch what the other dog does. Oh, that person doesn't seem too bad. He's getting petted and he's all happy, and so let me try. That works as well. Watching the other companion in the family.
Learning can occur. Learning can occur if socialization was missing or done wrongly.
Sure.
There can be learning.
And we always encourage them to use their other dog.
Mm-hmm.
And then last case scenario, they can talk to their veterinarian about medication.
Or a veterinary behaviorist.
Or a veterinary behaviorist.
If the idea is that during the prime optimal socialization time of growth of a puppy of 10 to 16 weeks, that their brain is plastic, I think is the term used, plastic enough that it can be changed and molded a little bit. Then once they get older, and that's much more difficult, if not impossible to do without creating new pathways, sometimes medication can help relax the brain, make it a little more plastic, so make it easier to train new behavior, more new neural pathways, new ways of responding to things.
But owners have to understand that that's a long process.
Yeah.
There's no magic wand. When the socialization doesn't happen when they're puppies, there's no magic wand that's going to make it better. It takes time, and it takes a lot of practice, a lot of repetition, a lot of patience.
So again, that's one thing. You adopt a dog, you're in the situation. You got to ask yourself, do you want to put the time, the effort into doing this?
And can you keep the dog safe and people safe and other dogs safe from this dog or to this dog during this process? Mm-hmm. Because many adult dogs that are unsocialized are very fearful.
Now the good news is a lot of shelters and rescue, not as many as we would like, but a lot of rescue groups and shelters have started testing the dog for sociability.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Before you even get a chance to see those big brown eyes and fall in love with it.
Right.
So that you can go in with get a good, well-socialized dog to start with.
Which means be aware of the private parties.
Yeah.
Trying to place their dog for
the very
what
sweet
reason.
lady that just got a 2-year-old Rottweiler, male, unneutered. She got him off Craigslist.
Oh.
She got him off Craigslist. And she tried to do the right. She says, well, bring him over so I can spend a little time with him for a while. And then I'll get, based on that, we'll have another discussion. And the guy says, sure, no problem. Great dog. Drops him off. She says, okay, I'll see you back in a couple hours. She never saw the man again.
Yeah, I see that one coming. Yep.
Fortunately, she's an experienced dog owner, experienced with Rotties, and she is bringing him along. But he's got some issues.
Mm-hmm. Okay, let's talk. Another thing that we hear of often is socialization at the local dog park.
Oh, dear.
Now, some dog parks can be great places, and I've had people tell me what wonderful places they are for socialization. They can also be horrible. Mm-hmm. Horrible. The downfall is not every dog that shows up at the dog park is well vaccinated. Not every dog that shows up at the dog park is healthy.
Is there a bouncer at the gate checking for proper vaccinations and whether or not that dog is stable enough to go play with others?
Yeah.
I have yet to see a dog park with
the
bouncer.
With the bouncer.
Not all dog owners should have a dog in the dog park.
Are all the people that are there emotionally stable?
There
Not
was
always.
one here locally that was closed down for a couple months because of a dog owner who was rude and aggressive and offensive.
They had to call the police.
They had to call the police on him, and they closed the park down for a couple months so that tensions could ease down, I think were the words they used. So there's pros and cons to dog parks. I would say if there's a good dog park in your neighborhood and there's friendly dogs and friendly dog owners, and you can ask if the dogs are up to date on their vaccinations and healthy, then carefully, very, very carefully. But be ready to grab your puppy, your dog, at a moment's notice and get out of there. They can be dangerous.
The few times I have seen a dog park work successfully is if enough of the dog owners that go there on a regular basis band together and self-police.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly.
And provide social pressure if somebody comes in
Yes.
that is not abiding by the rules. So before you go in with your puppy, watch for a while. Are the owners standing, talking to each other, and ignoring the dogs?
Right. Are there kids running rampant,
Okay.
screaming and hollering, and dogs chasing them?
And the pups might get into a squabble. Do the owners immediately get in there, separate them, straighten them out?
Puppies, young dogs will squabble just like kids will on the playground. A certain amount of it's normal.
But watch what's going on. Is that the environment you want your puppy to be in?
Or like Liz and I saw, pay attention to cars that pull up and their dogs hanging out, going, really aggressive and ready to tear into something. I'd be picking up my dog real quick and walking right out of that park because trouble's coming.
We did that. We pulled up out front of a dog park in Escondido.
Oh my God!
Watched a guy pull up with a pickup truck with a big German Shepherd hanging out of it, screaming and hollering and growling.
And that wasn't out of excitement. That was out of excitement.
The guy turned the dog loose as he walked in the gate, and all the other dogs. I didn't see blood drawn, but we left very shortly thereafter.
Yeah, don't know what
it was ugly. It was really, really ugly. So, be careful with dog parks. Now, along that lines, when we're talking about groups of dogs, there is a trainer on TV who has a pack of dogs. It's basically like a group of dogs at a dog park. He brings dogs to his pack and he turns them loose in his pack. Unfortunately, we have a lot of dog owners who then call us and want us to do the same thing for their dog. Now, this gentleman on TV is obviously a very good trainer in his own right, but unfortunately TV doesn't show all the steps and it doesn't show the whole process. And a dog pack can be an extremely dangerous thing. Now, that said, here at Kindred Spirits, we do have a similar pack of our own dogs. Mm-hmm. And our dogs, on Saturday morning classes, we can have 15 or 16 dogs here in our office yard running together and getting along well. And if we have a new trainer join our group with his or her dogs, they're introduced carefully and then allowed to run with the pack. So we do something similar. But taking a strange dog and turning it loose into a group of dogs.
Especially one that has already demonstrated behavioral issues.
Right. Now, that's not to say that what this trainer rehabilitator does can't be used in good socialization practices on a slightly different scale. For example, we'll use an adult dog like Petra's German Shepherd Teddy or my Aussie Bashir if we have a aggressive, pushy puppy that needs some adult supervision, some adult correction.
By an adult dog.
By an adult dog, but only with our well-known adult dogs that are trustworthy.
Exactly.
We know how they're going to react. And only after we've discussed it with the puppy's owner and he or she knows exactly what's going to happen, that if the puppy gets out of line, the adult dog's going to squash him and growl at him and the puppy's apt to yipe and cry. But we know that these adult dogs aren't going to take it too far.
Exactly. They're there for teaching the puppy.
So situations like this should only be done with a trainer supervision, with a trainer's dog or a very well-known dog. And don't try it on your own. And don't try anything you see on TV on your own, because it's not showing the whole thing.
Or don't have a friend go, well, I think he's good with puppies,
but I'm not sure.
It's okay. I watched the DVD. I know how to do this.
Scary.
I don't care if it's dog training or building your own house. You can't do it from one DVD.
Right.
Okay.
Now, let's continue with the risks of socialization and one of the reasons why your veterinarian might be a little worried. When kids go back to school, sometimes a few weeks or a month or so after they've gone back to school, a bug goes around or a cold goes around. Petra, your daughter gets sick every year right after school starts.
Beginning of the school year.
Yep. Unfortunately, sometimes things happen. But we've been teaching puppy classes for 20-some years now.
Yeah, over 20 years.
And rarely ever do we have a puppy get sick. Knock on wood.
I mean, I can't think of the last one ever got sick from our classes. It was usually they've called us.
Right.
And it's from somewhere else. I took my dog to
the dog park and got kennel cough.
Or that time the dog show came into town.
The dog flu.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had a bad exposure to the dog flu from the local dog show.
Yeah, they brought it to us.
Yeah.
Our dogs got
and
it.
one of my dogs got it. Yeah. So, unfortunately, yes, there are some risks. However, if your puppy's had at least a couple sets of shots and he's got a healthy immune system, then chances are he's going to be just fine. But just know the realities.
You can't keep... Well, I suppose some people do keep their kids out of school so they never get sick. But that's not life.
Right.
For most of us.
Right. Now, in closing, the veterinarian, Dr. Robert Anderson, had an excellent article on puppy vaccinations and early socialization. He recommends that they go together. And on the website DAWGS.com/puppy socialization, in the closing of his article, he says, "Please remember that the risk of a dog dying of euthanasia because of behavior problems is more than 1,000 times the risk of a puppy dying of distemper or parvovirus." He says early learning, socialization of puppies, and appropriate vaccinations should go together in a wellness program designed to protect the lives of dogs and improve the bond with families. Period.
Here.
I
Totally agree.
Well said.
Even as a writer, I couldn't do it any better than that.
Well said. Robert M. Anderson.
It's Robert K. Anderson, DVM, on urbandogs.com.
Well done, sir.
Yeah, excellent. So, socialization, yes, puppies have to have it between the ages of 10 and 16 weeks, and then hopefully continuing on into adulthood. An adult dog that hasn't had socialization, there's things you can do, but you can't make up for that puppy time period. And then, yes, there are some risks of it, but you can control those risks. You can make it safe for your puppy. You can be careful. There's some things you shouldn't do, like dog parks and unknown dog packs.
Exactly.
But you can socialize your puppy well and carefully and ensure both his good mental health and his good physical health.
Agreed.
Yep. All right, so that's it. Thanks for listening to this episode of It's a Doggy Dog World. We'll be back in a couple weeks with a new podcast. We'll talk to you later.
Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye.
Having a rough day? Longing for the dog days of summer? Think your fun furry friend lives a dog's life? Well, find out everything you're begging to know as Pet Life Radio presents It's a Doggy Dog World with pet expert and award-winning author Liz Palaika. Every dog has his day, and you'll find out how to make your dog's day fun and rewarding. Every week, on demand, only on PetLifeRadio.com.